us our moderator, Mr. Madhusudan Khemka, Managing Director and CEO, Region Powertech. We also have with us Ms. Varsha Joshi, Joint Secretary, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Government of India. I'd also like to welcome Mr. K.S. Popli, Chairman, IRDA, Mr. Narayan Kumar, CEO, Winden International Hindustan Clean Energy, Mr. Ranjit Gupta, CEO, Austro Energy. We'd also like to welcome Mr. Chandan Shah, President, Strategic BD, Suzlon Energy. And after the panel discussion, we'd like to do an open house for a few minutes.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining today. I would like to welcome my colleagues on the dais, Ms. Varsha Joshi, Joint Secretary, MNRE, Mr. K.S. Popli, Chairman, IREDA, Mr. Narayan Kumar, CEO, International Hindustan Clean Energy, Ranjit Gupta, CEO, Austro Energy, and Chintan Shah, President, Strategic BD, Suzlon Energy. It's an interesting topic because, as we all know, wind energy is very matured industry in this country, and we have very laudable targets of 60 gigawatts in next 3 to 4 years. And as industry, I think it's very achievable numbers what we are talking. And there are a lot of credit to this sector as we are almost touching 27,000 megawatts this year or even more. We have almost 10,000 megawatt per year manufacturing capacity in the country. I think in Make in India, this one sector, one industry has done full justice. Every single wind turbine which is installed in the country, I think it has more than 85% of local contents, and all value additions are happening locally. And it has been a very sustainable growth. Year on year, the sector is adding anywhere between 2,000 to 3,000 gigawatt. And if everything goes well, I think this number is going to grow only. No doubt, like any other sector, we have some challenges on ground, and that's why we are sitting here. We always say that even in renewable, wind energy is most green. Why it is like that? Number one, we do not use any water during our manufacturing process or during operation process. Even for our maintenance or our services, we do not use any water. Number two, we always have these towers standing in open field. The entire land is available for any other purposes, whatever, whether it is for grazing or for farming or anything. We hardly use, we call it pugmark, a small piece of land below the towers for the wind turbines. And apart from that, we do not create artificial environment issues. There is no radiation from our machines. Even on a sunny day, we do not reflect any radiation in the environment. We have very, very simple operation of the machines, and we have no challenges with the environment. It has been always affordable. That is why we have added nearly 2 to 3,000 gigawatt every year. One thing which is very important, we have now moved to the sites 5 years back which were not suitable for wind energy, and we are still maintaining the same plant load factors around 22 to 25%, because the technologies have advanced. In wind energy, unlike solar or any other sector, we are very site specific. We cannot move even a couple of meters here and there. We have to install these wind turbines wherever we have good wind resource. But still, we have been able to maintain very high performance of technology. So let's use this resource for the growth of country and growth of the sector, as well as to meet Prime Minister's target of 175 gigawatt of renewable, out of which 60 gigawatt of wind. To start with, I'd like to request Ms. Varsha Joshi, Joint Secretary, to share her views to meet this target of 60 gigawatt. What generally we look forward is a sustainable policy, because a typical wind farm project, which is 50 to 100 megawatts, it needs anywhere between 18 to 24 months, sometimes even more than that. And if we include in that even the wind resource assessment, it is anywhere between 3 to 4 years. So we are looking for a sustainable policy, and also how it can become a key power resource for the country. We have challenges in states. We have challenges of power evacuation. So how it can become a sustainable source for power, I'll request Madam to highlight.
Thanks, Khemka-ji. Yeah, 60,000, it's about 25, I think we crossed 25 last month. So that was a milestone. We crossed 25 gig last month, so we have 35 more to go. It is a large target, it is going to be challenging, and now you can't really expect the states to absorb more power all by themselves. A lot of the states which are windy are touching a very large proportion of their energy mix from wind already. Wind is such an infirm source of power that expecting them to take more load on their own balancing is going to be hard. So the only way out is interstate. And fortunately for us, we've been waiting for this to happen. The national tariff policy has now waived off the interstate transmission charges for wind also. So that's where the big opportunity lies today. You have to sell it interstates. The tariff policy has also increased the RPO. So now you have a large RPO spread across all the states in the country, and that's where your wind has to be sold. Also, this wind is going to be sold better if it arises from the places where the cost of production is cheaper, that is the higher wind zones. So that's going back to the main, the mother source of wind in India, that's Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, a bit of Andhra, a bit of Maharashtra, and of course Gujarat. So that's where I see the future, that wherever the high wind zones are there, we are also coming up with a repowering policy. It should be through very soon. And the higher wind zones, which have not been utilized to their best extent in the past, because they were already occupied by those ancient 200 to 50 kilowatt machines. It's time to repower those areas. It's time to put money into that, because you get very good wind. You have more than 30% CUF there, and it's going to be really cheap and easy to sell across the states. And we can also look at the same time at using it to hybrid with solar. That's also an option which is open. Plus, across the country, wherever there is good wind, there are a lot of locations which have just not been utilized. The land is there, the wind masts are there, but the companies have not developed it. So I would request those companies sitting there to either develop it now in view of the new tariff policy, and sell that wind interstate, or sell it in open access, or allow, come out of that place and allow other companies to set up there, because we should not waste any of this very precious resource. Apart from that, we are also pushing for an offshore policy. The policy is out. We are putting a LiDAR in the water near Gujarat, near the Pipavav port in Gujarat. We have a location. I think that LiDAR should be transmitting data by maybe April or May, before this windy season at any rate. We'll be getting data from there. After 1 year's worth of data, we are going to be ready to come up with the first offshore bid. So offshore is a major opportunity, and it has supply chain opportunities all the way up and down the line. So we have high hopes from that. We are also putting a LiDAR somewhere near Tuticorin. So we have two excellent locations coming up, which are going to be clean and clear, and will not require too much heavy R&D or heavy investment to enter the waters there. So offshore is a huge opportunity which everybody must look at, and that's where we can expect better support from the government also. The other issue is the rising prices of wind power. One thing is that if we move too much into wind zones which are not of very high CUF, naturally the prices will rise. And then you have to compete with solar, and are you really in a position to compete at say 6 rupees of wind? Are you in a position to compete with 4 rupees 50 paisa of solar, which is now moving towards the standard price for solar? So relying merely on the government to go on supporting an industry beyond a certain limit has its limitations. So I think industry needs to introspect there and see how prices can come down, how the wind can be made more saleable. Meanwhile, open access is always an option which is open for you. And looking at marrying manufacturing with wind, which is where wind started in India, I think that's the place we need to go back and look and then push across the country. Regarding transmission issues, yes, there have been issues in the past. That's why the Green Energy Corridor project was made. The project is chugging along fine. The power grid is making the major backbones. As of today, there are no real constraints in the backbone as far as moving power from the western part of the country to the northern or eastern part, or from the southern part upwards. There are no real issues. The transmission corridor is there. There are local distribution issues, especially in Tamil Nadu. I'm aware of it. But it's Tamil Nadu which has moved the fastest when it comes to the Green Energy Corridor project within the state. And we have already pushed a lot of money into that from the Government of India, because the tenders are moving very fast. We just moved another large amount of money there, and I can assure you that if the wind industry comes back and tells me that there is a specific need for improving the transmission in any part of any of the windy states, I will have no difficulty in getting those projects off the ground very quickly, because the states are also very enthusiastic about that. So I think we will have to have a change in mindset really. The era of 25-year PPA signed by the same state at a steady tariff, if it's going, it's going. You know, times change. One has to just face the reality that that era is not going to continue for a long time, or expecting the government to go on giving incentives for a long time for a well-established industry. It's just not going to happen, let's face it. So we also have to think more innovatively. We are there to help you in any new initiatives you want us to take. And meanwhile, the industry has to ultimately stand on its own feet.
Thank you. Thank you very much, madam. I think it was quite elaborated view. And now I'll request Mr. Popley to throw some light on the financial sector and the availability of resources for this growth. We have two challenges. One, we have to meet the targets. We have huge growth ahead of us. And number two, we have to make it affordable. As we all know that in renewable sector and wind sector, the cost of money is one of the main contributor to the cost of energy. So if Mr. Popley could highlight his views on availability of money and cost of money.
Yeah, thank you. If you look the scenario for last 5 years, I mean, there is a sea change in financing for wind energy projects. More than 70 to 80% of the projects are non-recourse finance, or we have a very limited recourse. The repayment period from door to door is now on average shifted to 17 years, which was earlier 10 to 12 years, 10 to 11 years. The interest rates have come down in last 15 months for more than 125 basis points, which are very, very attractive today, varying between 10% to 11.25%, 10.5% to 11.25%. The financing, all this has happened because lenders got a comfort that the non-performing assets in wind were very, very small, except that there has been some backing down in Tamil Nadu and a few states. But otherwise, the wind projects have performed pretty well from the lender's perspective. We have also opened up, we are also giving short-term loans. We are also giving refinancing. A lot of developers are taking refinance where they are getting lower cost of funds, so changing. They are also raising bonds from the market. So the scenario, if you look at it, and different instruments have come. You have restructured, structured financing is also available. People have also gone for green bonds. So the market has suddenly opened up. Then rupee bonds, international masala bonds, some countries, some companies have raised. So I think the financing per se would not be a challenge for 3,000 to 4,000 megawatt every year. I think this is sufficient finance is available in the country. And the terms of financing have also eased out considerably during last 2 years particularly. And I am sure going forward, if this trend continues, I think financing is not a challenge today also, and it will not be a challenge for developers for getting finance. So thank you.
Sir, what will be the ruling cost of finance in your view in next couple of years?
It's a very difficult question, but I feel you can look at further easing of cost by another 25 to 50 basis points, because we are also working out on reducing the cost of hedging, maybe by swap with Exim Bank and things like that, since our financing is primarily from lines of credit and the major cost goes in hedging. Plus, we are also trying to raise a alternate investment fund of $1 to $1.5 billion. So that will help getting equity for their projects.
Thank you, Mr. Popli. Now I'll move towards Chintan, who is one of the veteran in wind industry. So Chintan, it will be, I think, really helpful if you could enlighten us with your views. How we will make wind energy more affordable, and also how it can become key power resource. We all know about the challenges of unpredictability in wind. If we have to increase our share, how it is going to happen, and how we can make it more affordable in your view.
Thank you. I think more than affordability, we should consider acceptability. Today, that's the problem. And if one was essentially list out the issues that the sector faces today, generally as just not wind, but generally as power sector, for the first time in India, we have an oversupply, massive oversupply in the grid, and lessening of demand. And one can see the exchange price is now it is hovering at 2 rupees 60 paisa, at times even 1 rupee 60 paisa. That means there is nobody who's buying it. People are selling more than buying. So with a very funny thing which has happened, in the last 4 years, entire gamut has changed. On top of it, you have obviously the issue of pricing that comes into picture, because every DISCOM is going through a tough time. It's a matter of time that Uday scheme would be implemented. It will take at least 1.5 to 2 years for them to plot bonds, set their balance sheet in the right directions and all. But today, most of the DISCOMs are in bad shape. But they have a major cash flow problem. On top of it, you already have a pressure coming from solar, because huge expectations are there in terms of cost of generation. Solar has gone down to all-time low of 4 rupees 34 paisa. It's a different story that when this project will get executed, implemented, we have to see. But as of now, definitely there's a promise which is in the air as far as solar is concerned. So all these things definitely puts a tremendous pressure on the acceptability of wind. At times, wind is also a victim of its own success. I mean, by adding almost 25 gigawatt and close to 27 gigawatt, the fair amount of expectations that has been built upon on the sector itself, labeled as a matured sector, it is a stable sector, there from last 25 years, it will change. But as you know, that things do take time to change. And a lot of things are happening on the wind sector side. On the other side, if you see the positives, you have the Make in India campaign of the government of India. Well, wind is Make in India. 10,500 megawatt of manufacturing capacities are in India. And I'll be surprised to know that we also export from India. And to export to where? To places like US, Canada, Brazil, Europe. That means developed countries. That means our product is acceptable in terms of standards, in terms of performances. There's another advantage that has happened in last couple of months is reduction in commodity prices. So that little bit has a benefit which has come to the OEMs. However, there are issues like MIP and anti-dumping duty that have been imposed by the government, which will little bit upset the apple cart. But overall, there's a reduction in commodity prices, which essentially is a good thing for the future. It's good to know that the reduction in interest rates are further going to come up. So that will also give a boost to the sector. But having said so, what's the way forward? This is all till now what has happened. Everyone knows there's a huge amount of supply, there's a lessening of demand, there's a pricing issue, there's a costing issue, there's a cash flow issue. What we feel in the future, what may happen is a couple of things that has happened in the last 1 year. The first thing is the Supreme Court ruling on RPO. There was this issue of a gray area where if you go for a conventional captive or a conventional open access, would you be a part of RPO or not? Or you have off-grid captive. Would you be under the ambience of the RPO or not? There's a ruling by the Supreme Court which has made it clear it has to be a part of RPO. So overnight, you have created a 10,000 megawatt of only RPO market, if presuming that the companies are going to implement it. And things have started positive in the right direction. At least big companies who have got a fair amount of governance are looking at actually buying renewables for the RPO compliance. That is a positive thing, which will also have an impact in the REC market, because that's the easiest way to go for compliance. So that's the one thing which is positive. Second thing, ma'am just pointed out, we had the amendment of national tariff policy. Two things happened in that. One is the waiver of interstate transmission losses and charges, which is definitely a big benefit for wind. Apart from that, the national tariff policy also talked about specifically about the pumped hydro, because that is again very important. Be it solar, be it wind, you need to balance it out. And this balancing is a key. If you don't have this balancing power, 175 gigawatt can't happen. It's impossible to happen. On the sector side, we have been now registering damn good PLFs, particularly because of redesigning the entire turbine for low wind regimes. At least from my company, I can tell you, we have registered a plant load factor of 33% in Gujarat with a 120-meter hybrid tower. And I'm sure that all our OEM partners will be looking at better technologies to have a better plant load factor. But that's where acceptability comes into picture, because you start using the transmission more and more often to have a high plant load factor. In the future, as we foresee, is solo solar, solo wind. Both are not good. Because solar, one thing is very clear, the sun sets down the night. But the grid has to be up throughout 24 hours. That means you end up drawing a fair amount of reactive power in the night, which is going to be a problem for the utility. Similarly, you end up using only 20% of the load factor of the transmission facilities, while the transmission facility is created for 100%. That means you have over-designing of transmission facility, also adding reactive power requirement to it. So what we foresee in the future is we'll have a wind-solar hybrid at transmission level, so that and at places it complements each other, particularly Gujarat, Rajasthan, it complements. And because of its complementarity, you might end up using lesser of transmission facility and higher load factor on the transmission side. Various simulation has shown a plant load factor, effective plant load factor at transmission of close to 45 to 50% if you use a wind-solar hybrid combination. That would basically make it acceptable to the utility, because now you're more predictable, A, B is require less reactive power, and 3, you require lesser transmission facility, which is better loaded. So that is the way in the future as we see it. And that's where the moment acceptability comes into picture, affordability can be answered. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Chintan. Now moving to Ranjit as head of a IPP company. Ranjit, I hope you will agree that we have a challenge of having wind energy affordable as well as a viable source of investment. So it's really a challenge, a tight rope walk. So as IPP, how do you manage and what do you foresee in coming years, or what are your expectations to keep wind energy affordable and also have your minimum IRR expectations from the investment?
Good afternoon, everyone. So, from the perspective of investors, if you look at why investors come in and put money into a particular industry, they look at the risks and the rewards that they get at the end of the risk that they've taken in a particular industry. So unless and until they feel that the risk-reward ratio is in their favor, is in the favor of the reward, you will typically not be able to attract capital into the country, and therefore, if you don't attract capital into the country, then that 175 gigawatt target will be very difficult to achieve. On the wind side, what we see, what the biggest problem that we face when we go to our investors and ask them for project approvals, the two main factors that we see is the policy continuity. That means the continuity of tariff across financial years. Typically in India, the tariffs are announced such that the tariffs end on March 31st, and the tariff for the next year is announced only very close to the end of the first tariff regime. And that gives a lot of discomfort to investors because they are not very sure of what the tariff might be for the coming year. Sometimes the policy or the regulations, they expire, so therefore, though there might be a tariff, wind policy doesn't extend beyond March 31st. So that also, injects a level of uncertainty that the investors are unable to grapple with. There are a few states where the tariffs are available for 2 or 3 years. Like for example, Madhya Pradesh had a tariff which was there for 3 years. And we have seen that it takes time for any state, any set of investors, any set of OEMs to develop projects in the wind sector. Like Khemka Saab was saying that, we need 3 years of wind data, 2 years of wind data, 1 year of wind data to be able to develop projects. So therefore, unless and until there is continuity in tariff, in Madhya Pradesh, we are seeing that the first year the tariff was there, very few megawatts were put in, second year slightly higher, and this third year of tariff, there is a huge push, and maybe 1,000 megawatts, 1,200 megawatts of projects will be done in Madhya Pradesh alone. So it takes time for acceleration to reach a level where you're going to do more than a gigawatt in a particular state, and for that to happen, you need some continuity of tariff. And the reason why Madhya Pradesh is going to do so well this year is because people have been preparing for the last 2 years and putting the building blocks in place to develop these projects. So we do need some continuity on tariff and policy for the investors to feel comfortable when they're coming into industry. The other aspect that we get most of the queries about is the health of DISCOMs. Many states, the DISCOMs are not paying regularly. They're paying 5 months, 6 months, 8 months beyond the time when the invoices are raised. So when we talk about making wind tariff acceptable, one of the key things is that the payment for the invoices needs to come within 15, 30, 45 days. Every month of delay in payment to an IPP is a loss in terms of the IRRs that the project will give, and therefore, you need a higher tariff to justify that particular project. So if, for example, a particular state started to pay in time, they started to pay in 30 days or 45 days, they could easily chop off practically, 5 paisa or whatever per month of, earlier payment. So they can, if they pay instead of 6 months, if they pay in 4 months, they can perhaps chop off 10 paisa from the tariff and thereby make wind more, realistic in terms of the tariff. The third thing that we are facing is the cost of the equipment. So even though, like Chintan spoke about the commodity prices, we are yet to see a reduction in the capital cost of equipment. So the capital cost of equipment continues to go up, which puts further pressure on the profitability of projects, given the pressure of solar tariffs on the wind tariffs. So these are the things that we would like to see. We would like to see continuity on tariff. We would like to see DISCOMs pay us on time, and we would like to see a little bit more optimized cost of equipment.
Thank you, Ranjit. Naran, I have, I know your company's main focus is on solar, and I came across some discussion from IPPs in wind who moved to solar recently and then again trying to come back to solar wind, telling that they don't see a major going forward in solar because it is very uncertain whether they will win the bids and they will continue to make their investments, whereas in FIT regime of wind, they have a sustainable business model. They can add some megawatts every year. So your company is in solar, and now you have started a wind energy division. So could you highlight what is the background of this and why you are in wind now, and what are your plans?
Mr. Khemka, we've been in wind for a very long time. I've been focused wind overseas. So, in as much as we've not been doing wind in India because of, as you rightly said, the focus has been on solar. We are one of the largest in India today. Eventually, we want to be in all aspects of renewables and contribute to the Prime Minister's, overall broad mission of 175 gigawatts. That having been said, there are certain innate challenges in the wind industry, which all of you have laid out, but there are advantages as well. So it is not as if we are going to be confined to the solar space. We are going to be across the spectrum. We are going to have a lot of free cash getting kicked out from our thermal business now that it's started. So the clear focus from Ratul's side is that renewables is going to become a very, very large play in his overall 5 gigawatt play. So wind is certainly what we are looking at. I mean, I don't have a set of specific numbers to share today, but wind is definitely going to be there. But whatever we have seen, at least whatever I have seen in the last 2-3 years doing several projects in Germany, UK, Italy, Japan, is a significant amount of predictability of policy, as Ranjit pointed out. It's a clear registration system where if it is a 40 JPY project, they are going to have a certain set of bucket of projects where the developers will come with them with the land approval, the METI approvals. So whoever is able to do the project within that time frame, even if it's going to get 2 or 3 or 4 years, they're going to get the 40 JPY tariff, and there is going to be a downscaling of tariffs after that. So there's a huge predictability. The investors are aware what the kind of return they're going to get. Obviously, the project-related risks are also fairly factored in. So the DISCOMs also, now we are facing problems in Japan or in Germany where there is a lot of grid overflow, like what is happening in TN or in China. But overall, we are seeing a situation, and that degree of predictability is what we are looking at the Indian wind industry in India also. Hopefully, it's going to achieve. We're going to be putting some serious money into this, and we believe that is where the market should be headed.
Yeah, thank you. So, coming back to Joint Secretary, Madam, we always as industry face a lot of challenges in states. We have seen as far as MNRE is concerned or Government of India is concerned, there is always very proactive policy initiatives and good guidelines, starting from RPO and then payment mechanism, acceptance of wind energy, PPAs, delays in PPAs. So as industry, I think there is always a dilemma when it comes to states. So what is your views on that and how it can be corrected?
Well, it's a federal country. There is a certain amount of autonomy you have to leave to the states. So as I think it was Chintan who just said that wind has been a victim of its own success. There is no doubt about that. That when the numbers are just too big for the state to digest, then automatically their appetite will come down. It is the most natural thing, which is why today it is Madhya Pradesh and Andhra and Rajasthan which are still gung-ho about the wind, and the rest are less so. I think very little can be done on that point of view. And apart from that, continuous dialogue with the states does make a difference. Just consider how well in the last 1 year, how the scheduling forecasting mechanism, which was a complete non-starter when we tried to get it done 3 or 4 years back, everything went wrong and nobody supported it. But now, thanks to the way the industry got together and put in their their side of support, how beautifully it is worked out that there is an interstate mechanism now acceptable to everybody, and each and every state has come out with some version of the intrastate, and eventually I'm sure it is all going to work out reasonably well, because that level of dialogue and that level of openness and transparency has been very high. So it's not that the states are not amenable to dialogue or accommodation where it is possible. Their financial situation in the DISCOMs is it is not related to the wind industry. It's not related to the central government. It is a situation which is born out of its own particular circumstances. As far as I can see today, to be honest, I find across the country, without exception, the best team of officers in every state is in the power sector. Absolutely no doubt about that. So every state knows how important it is to fix things there. Every state is working very hard to get out of the mess that the recent past has taken it to. And I think that is where the solutions lie. Once their financials improve, all these problems are going to be much easier to solve.
Thank you very much, madam. Coming back to Mr. Popley, sir, in wind sector, as we know that project financing is definitely the key, but we have a lot of related activities. Starting from project development, where much ahead of the COD, we have to start working on the project land acquisition, creating power infrastructure, and other things. And also we have our associate partners like logistics companies who are importing and buying new equipments to handle very heavy wind energy equipments. We have crane suppliers, vendors who have to hire new cranes. So you have any policy to fund those people also? That is number one. And number two, is there any plan to raise really large amount of money to fund wind energy through some tapping international markets, and what are the plans of it?
No, as far as tapping international lines is concerned, we are already having lines of credit from almost all multilateral agencies. Second, you said about funding logistics equipment. I think if we get some proposals from the manufacturers, we can definitely look into it. The third one you said about the development loan. Now, we had considered with one or two companies, but there is no certainty. I mean, if we are sure that this is the rate at which they will be signing PPA, some comfort level if it is provided to the lenders, I think we can also look at it. I mean, if they are willing to. So we had looked at it very closely. We can work it out further. I mean, there are large developers who want developmental loans. We can look at it, definitely. And definitely first 1-2 projects we will take some time, but then definitely we can look at it.
So I assume, sir, IREDA is ready to fund. It's not focused only on project financing for renewable energy, but also associated.
Yes, definitely we are doing it in other sectors as well.
Thank you very much. Chintan, what are the 3 main issues you would like to address to achieve the targets which are ahead of us, to achieve 60 gigawatt of
as ma'am said, India is a federal country. So it's very important for the sector to reorganize itself, work with the state government, what sort of benefits the state is going to derive because of wind power. That's the key part. And I think that's been missing since quite some time. I think it's high time that the industry and the ministry both need to sit down with the state government to make it more acceptable. Second thing, most important part is there is a CEA planning manual for renewables that needs to be implemented at the state level. That would reduce fair amount of transmission investments, which allows you overloading of the transmission line. Because the moment you put up a transmission line in a state, they normally give you a parameter of conventional power. If you have a 200 megawatt wind project, it's not a solar project. There will be 100 turbines. And these 100 turbines are not going to generate 100% at any point of time. So essentially, you can overload the line to 15-20%. Rather leave it to the industry to decide. Give connectivity on amperes instead of megawatt MVA basis, and allow the industry to, we call it ampacity essentially. And this is also a prelude for going for wind solar hybrid. So you have an ampacity based connectivity, which will change a lot of things in the future. And finally, as I would like to end over here, सूरज रात को नहीं होता है, फिर भी हम जिंदा रहते हैं. हवा के बगैर एक पल भी जीना रहना मुश्किल है.
I think well said. Ranjit, from your side, you are IPP backed by international funds. So, and I know that you have come here with a very long-term view of the country. So, how has been your experience in your first couple of projects?
The experience has been very good. I think that's the reason currently we are executing almost 600 odd megawatts of wind projects on the ground. So the reason why we've got the investment approvals for these projects is because the investors took a view that these projects meet their risk-reward parameters. However, the challenges that are looming are not insignificant. And going forward, if we want to continue with the industry, then some of the suggestions that have been made in this panel need to be brought onto the ground. The policy continuity, the DISCOM health, and we need to make sure that the business is supported, the wind business is supported as much as the other businesses, other renewable businesses are supported across the country, because wind has several advantages, right? I mean, there are disadvantages also, but there are several advantages. And one of the big advantages that you yourself pointed out was about the land, right? The requirement for land is very small. It is not contiguous. It does not displace people. You don't need large tracts of land. And therefore, in many states, these wind projects can be, are set up close to habitation, where they can be close to load centers, sort of. And, so that is a big advantage in a country where land is always a very tricky acquisition. So wind has its advantages. We need to manage it better. As an industry, we need to manage it better. And on the policy front, it needs to be managed better.
Thank you, Ranjit. Nayan, I know that you have been connected to wind technologies since many years now, and now you are acting as IPP. You have changed from manufacturing. So you think that the technology platform available in India in wind sector is at par with the global technologies, or there is anything new which you feel is required to be tapped to make it more attractive?
Mr. Khemka, I think we've got possibly the same level of or degree of technologies as the rest of the world has. And one of the important things which all of us know is that despite increasing capex, cost per kilowatt hour is always reducing. So there has been a great amount of efficiency which has been added. I mean, in your own case, in Suzlon's case, there are several manufacturers who have done their utmost in terms of significant investment in R&D, despite whatever cash flows challenges are there. I think one of the best things which Indian WTG manufacturers have continued to do is relentless investment in R&D, which is always going to keep this industry in a good state. So please continue this good work, and that is what is going to be driving us to meet the government's targets. And as I rightly said, Make in India is something which this industry has been doing right from the 90s, when you yourself have been associated with. So we need to continue doing that. That is where this industry is going to be headed.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, I think it's very well said that though the cost per megawatt hour might be going up or not coming down, but it is cost per kilowatt hour. I think that is where we have a big advantage. So now we'll go for quick 3 questions before we close. And I think if anybody has any questions, if 3 is too much, let it be 1 or 2 or nothing. Please let me know. Yes, please.
Yeah. I mean, very interesting
You
discussion.
can introduce yourself before you.
Jami Hussain, I'm now associated with Region Powertech also. And I mean, very interesting discussion, many aspects covered, but something that we perhaps have not addressed that much, and that is very much like something that concerns the wind industry today. And I would say it's like something in the background which has not come up really, is the tariff of solar has come down, you know, to say 4.3 and all these things. And how does this affect the wind industry, where the tariff is around, you know, 4.5 rupees or 5 rupees, and going forward, how do you see things moving? Chintan or somebody, you know, if you can throw light on this.
May I request Chintan, you would like to answer this?
Okay, this is my personal opinion. See, whenever competitive bidding happens in capital goods, it leads to imports in India. Be it ultra mega power project, be it solar. So there is an economy of scale available in China, which is a fact, and which is fueling the lower cost of solar. The real litmus test would be when solar manufacturing comes up in India and starts delivering the same costs. There's going to be a challenge. There is a cost to manufacture in India. And the whole idea is, what we want to achieve? We want to achieve 175 gigawatt, or we want to essentially also address the market and the GDP of India. What is happening in solar today, it is driven towards a service-based economy, like ultra mega power project. You had huge amount of OMS activities happening in India, but none of the manufacturing happening in India. Same is happening in solar today. So it's a call that the government has to take. Would you like to manufacture in India and have a multiplier effect on the GDP? Because the moment you put a manufacturing unit, you have ancillary units coming in. You create a different type of job creation. And also you become so competitive because of domestic market, you are also very, very good for exports also. So that's a call, this is a different call. So when we talk about tariffs, tariff is only one part of the entire gamut. It's a larger thing. We have an amazing opportunity today in India, having unveiled 175 gigawatt of market. Such market doesn't exist anywhere in the world. So we have a one-time opportunity to create manufacturing backbone in India. And I think one should not harp more on the tariff, rather concentrate more on the manufacturing, and we want to how to tap this market and take the maximum benefit out of it. That's my view.
I don't know, because I think ultimately you have to see the paying capacity of the customer.
Agree,
And
I agree with that.
In India, you cannot arbitrarily go on increasing the tariffs beyond the limit.
You can't.
I don't
You have that economy of scale
I don't
coming
think
in.
it is something that can be taken so lightly. Of course, the government is looking at how larger manufacturing in solar can come to India. What kind of prices it is going to lead to is, of course, remains to be seen. As also how the trajectory of solar bids is going to continue in the future needs to be seen. That's a different story. But, you know, we cannot, this country cannot sacrifice the idea of low cost power for any other, because that power is going to come to houses, is going to come to industry. Everybody has to pay for it. And we cannot afford the kind of high tariffs which are easily digested by, say, Japan, customers in Japan or customers in Germany. It's not going to happen in India. Let's face the political truth.
Madam, with due respect to your views, I think what Chintan is trying to say is that investment on technology and investment on import of technology and focus on manufacturing is absolutely, as industry man,
By all means.
that is absolutely the primemost thing. It is the investments and capital investment going into other sectors which are not made in India. You have capital investment import and you have recurring cost, because most of the funding is also happening from outside. So you have recurring, repayment in forex, as well as you have capex which is being invested in foreign exchange. Whereas in wind, at least your capex is not in foreign exchange, and in most of the cases even you have Indian IPPs and Indian money which is being invested. So there is a small difference, and that is where the real value lies. That's the view. Yeah, yes please. We have actually, I think we'll stop with this question.
Is there a mic for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Shah, at point in time, I remember you were looking at selling applications rather than selling energy. So, giving wind and then grain storage in the villages using wind energy for applications. Is that being considered in India now? That rather than selling electricity, you sell applications so that you are assured of your payments rather than selling to DISCOM and address an unaddressed market. Is that a plan now? And my second question is anything being done in India to use a combination of research on wind and hydrogen? There's a lot of research happening in Europe of generating hydrogen with wind offshore, and then use hydrogen through fuel cells. A lot of work is being done. That addresses, you can have cars with fuel cells, you can generate electricity.
Of course.
Is there anything being done in India on that kind of research?
Fair amount of research is happening on storage and hydrogen all, but if you see the current economics, if you're getting electricity at 2 rupees from the exchange, it's cheaper to back down a thermal power plant or buy it from a thermal power plant than to go for a storage. So I don't foresee this economics to change for the next 4 or 5 years. Because there is massive demand which is already, massive supply that has already been created, and lessening of demand is there.
Yeah, so cost of electricity, ma'am, I'll support what was said about manufacture. Cost of electricity in India is 1/3 of that of Japan. Germany is 24 euro cents a unit. So we are far, far cheaper, and we need to educate our masses that our electricity is already the cheapest in the world. We can make it further cheaper, but we need to educate people that our electricity is very cheap at the moment. You compare it with anybody around the world, we are one of the cheapest electricity suppliers in the world.
Thank you. I think we come to the final part of our discussion today. I must thank Joint Secretary Ms. Varsha Joshi Madam, Mr. Popley, Chintan, and Ranjit and Narayan who have taken active participation. And thanks to all of you, though there were only 2 questions, but I think generally I feel it has been an interactive round. At least I could see a lot of heads nodding. That means people were able to grab that what we were talking. So I appreciate your time, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so very much, sir, for making our final panel so interesting. So thank you very much. And to thank each one of you for your time, I'd like to request Mr. K.N. Subramaniam, CEO, Mozabay Solar, to please join us on stage, and personally thank each and every one of you. Let us welcome him on stage. Joining us, Mr. K.N. Subramaniam. Warm welcome to you, sir. And also all those of you who are active on social media, our hashtag is hashtag ET Power Summit. So you're more than welcome to be very, very active there. And please give us a chance to thank each and every one of you. Thank you so very much, ma'am. Pleasure indeed. Let's put our hands together. I'm sure it's been an enlightening day, so we have much more energy than that.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And let me also take this opportunity to thank all our partners. Sir, may I request you to join us for a group picture, please? I'd like to thank our title partner, Hindustan Power. I'd like to thank our powered by partners, Bajaj, our platinum partner, Revin, our gold partner, Regent Power Tech, our silver partner, JSW Energy, our associate partners, Switch and India Power, our supporting organizers, along with our knowledge partner, supporting partner, online media partner, our digital magazine partner, our magazine partner, and our live webcast partner. As I thank each and every one of you here, I'd like to request all our guests to please fill in their feedback forms and submit them at the registration desk. Once again, thank you for joining us.